Hello everyone, my name is Akash Chaudhary and I'll be presenting our paper, Are You Still Watching? Exploring unintended user behaviors and dark patterns on video streaming platforms. What are dark patterns? Dark patterns are deceptive UI that push people to 1. Spend money on products they didn't intend to buy, 2. Install apps they don't need or divert attention, or 3. Give away their personal data. More generally, as pointed out by Harry Brignall, we can say a dark pattern is a UI carefully crafted to trick users into doing something they might not otherwise do. The image on the left shows the black colored close button that is conveniently hidden in the black hair of the person in the graphic. The image on the right shows Instagram message notifications when indeed there is no unread message. All these UI are intentionally designed to manipulate users into doing something that they didn't intend. While Gray et al. Talk about categories of dark patterns in general, Zagal et al. And Mathur et al. Talk about dark patterns in gaming and shopping respectively. In this paper, we explore dark patterns in the digital activity of video watching, a phenomenon which has become an important aspect in our daily social life discussions. Squid Games on Netflix, after its September 17th premiere in 2021, posted a record high of 1.65 billion watching hours of the season within 28 days. Here we can see some video streaming UI like autoplay, timestamps, and a long recommendation scroll, which might appear innocuous at the outset, but through our paper, we find that these UI patterns are indeed problematic and promote overwatching and regretful behaviors. To find out trends in user behavior related to video streaming app UI, we conduct an online diary study. We enroll 22 participants who are encouraged to video watch naturally. Subsequently, they are required to fill diary entry after finishing a viewing session. We analyze users for their state of mind and emotional responses at the video selection phase, that is the interaction phase, as well as the video completion phase, both at the start and the end of a viewing session. As these figures indicate, we find that autoplay and recommendations increase compulsiveness from the start to the end of session. We also observe interesting user behaviors at the start and end of a viewing session with respect to UI interaction used. While at the start of the session, autoplay users had a mindful viewing session, recommendation users were usually in a margin of uncertainty. User interviews revealed that this might be because autoplay users see desired content initially, while recommendation users are unsure about what to watch in the beginning. However, autoplay users very soon become mindless. Interviews revealed that the reason behind this might be that while watching a series, users do not have enough time in the autoplay timer to pause, to reflect, and discuss about the recently concluded episode in a story clearly, or to make a conscious decision to stop watching. Since recommendations continuously keeps recommending on the basis of previous watching history, users start liking the suggestion as it starts matching their current mood. However, towards the end of a viewing session, users are usually exhausted and bored with the presented recommendations and hence become mindless. We similarly find that autoplay and recommendations increase user regret after users complete a video. Further, our paper similarly reports interesting trends related to users' emotional responses at the video completion phase, where we classify 4 different types of feelings based on desirable or undesirable content watched, as well as the duration or amount of videos watched. These results lead us to further investigate UIs containing dark patterns. We then conduct a study for investigating dark patterns on video streaming platforms. We analyze the UI features on 4 famous platforms in India. The research team identified 45 problematic UI instances on these platforms. We then conduct interviews with 15 participants for gathering evidence on the state of these UI artifacts from a user-centric perspective. With the help of user validations, we find that UI dark patterns are responsible for the reduction in user autonomy and self-control on video streaming platforms, and then present a novel taxonomy consisting of 5 categories of dark patterns, which we term as the following. A first dark pattern, feature fog, refers to UI patterns that induce unawareness by reducing autonomy of monitoring user time spent. The figure on the left is a symbolic representation of this pattern, and the figure on the right is an example of UI on Netflix, which only displays the time remaining and not the time elapsed. These UI patterns are designed so that the user is less able to get feedback on time spent while engaged in a viewing session. Here we can see some user quotes that talk about this pattern. The strategy is similar in effect to the psychological trick used by restaurants called menu engineering, where costly items are hidden so that they are not in direct visual contact of customers. Our second dark pattern is extreme countdown. Extreme countdown refers to UI patterns that have a timer and that execute automatically if not interrupted within the short period of time. Here, I'd specifically like to point that the naming of these patterns is done to reveal certain situations of use and their consequent effect on a user's state of mind. For example, extreme countdown not only represents the timer in an autoplay functionality, but also the pressure situation induced by it for the users to make a decision. Here on the right, we have an example of autoplay on Netflix. The UI automatically makes a decision to play the next video. Participants pointed out how such patterns induce pressure situations to make decisions instantly, especially when present in a social setting. Here we can see some quotes representing user sentiments on this pattern. Though such a pattern is useful when watching the desired content, it is also responsible for enforcing a sunk cost fallacy when users have invested some time in a season that they might not necessarily even enjoy watching. Our next dark pattern is switch-off delay. Switch-off delay refers to UI patterns that promote strategies of hiding restrictive features in the default UI of streaming platforms. The logout feature, as seen in the figure on the right, is not readily available on many streaming platforms. As observed from a previous user study, we know that recommendations enforce extended viewing due to specific recommendations based on user watching history over long-length video sessions. Users pointed that there could be advantages to logging out on video streaming platforms in that the recommendations become neutral and become less potent in enforcing compulsiveness. Such UI interventions act as design frictions that reduce unnecessary viewing behaviors by providing the user with some necessary time to think. Our next dark pattern is attention quicksand. Attention quicksand refers to UI patterns that instantly start without any conscious user action. They instantly grab user attention and divert them from what could otherwise be a different online behavior. Example of this pattern is instant GIF starter on video thumbnails due to mouse hover, or a single touch scroll on mobile devices, as seen on the image to the right. Users found these UI elements to be intrusive and irritating at times. Psychologically, these platforms use the power of animated visual content consumed through the path of least cognitive resistance that causes instant gratification through a simple hover interaction. Again, this is misused by most platforms for capturing attention. Our final dark pattern is bias grind. Bias grind refers to UI patterns that disproportionately overload user interests and biases. An example of this pattern is providing an infinitely long scroll of recommendations based on previous watching history, as seen here on the image to the right. This pattern contains two psychological tricks. One, choice overload. This is a phenomenon of presenting too many choices to users, which has been associated with unhappiness, decision fatigue, choosing the default option, and choice deferral. And two, reinforcing user biases and interests. This makes it difficult for users to make the right choice if these patterns are not optimized and effectively categorized, essentially sometimes leaving them in a state of choice paralysis. With the help of this study, we provide the initial proof for the presence of dark patterns on video streaming platforms and that they reduce user autonomy and self-control. We present a comprehensive list of dark patterns shown through the red marked symbols on the 4 famous video streaming platforms in India on laptop, PC, mobile, tablets, and television through this table. As per our current norms, we find usable design as per current standards is not necessarily an ethical one. We need to reevaluate ease of use as not just providing convenient functionality, rather how it affects us as individuals. We finally present some design suggestions that can enhance user well-being on streaming platforms. One way to achieve this is by introducing effective design frictions or nudges that provide users some time to think. Another way is by introducing more conscious interactions on the default UI to increase user autonomy and a sense of self-control. For example, the default option in autoplay for video watching is selecting play next after a brief amount of time. The default option could instead be changed to skip credits and then require a conscious interaction in order to begin playing the next episode of the series. Some features like recommendations could be presented to enhance more diversity of choice, while enabling better state of mind by reducing unnecessary and unlimited recommendations. Finally, there should be an option for users to easily refresh their recommendations that takes users away from their previously defined biases and interests. To sum up, our taxonomy is based on a user-centric perspective, considering salience of digital well-being parameters such as self-control and autonomy as most important. We use a temporal, short and long-term, behavioral-based perspective for classifying dark patterns in video watching platforms. Thank you.